Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to KSP. Now, I apologize for there not being any KSP episodes for a while. Um, like I stated in the last episode, which was like 2 or 3 weeks back at this point, I wanted to try and get a space plane up and running. I will add footage in for the probe that I had, the science probe that I'd sent to the sun to collect some scientific data, so I could get this. I did end up having to use the in-game infinite fuel just to get the probe back. I didn't intend on bringing the probe back, but it was a case of I wasn't getting a lot of science from it, and because of that, I decided. I wasn't getting like a lot of science from transmitting the data back. I was getting, I think I probably got like 40 something science. So like the 41 science you see here is probably the science, I think was the science that I got from transmitting the data back. So with such poor returns, like I said, the probe wasn't meant to come back, but I decided to go ahead and bring it back because I did have goo containers on there, and I did some science with the goo containers while they were there, and decided, you know what, I might as well just go ahead and keep it. And yeah, it netted me so much more science. It got me 300 science, so I was able to get this. And I primarily got this because I wanted the shielded docking port, so I could dock my space planes forward instead of on the top or on the side like I was designing. It seemed like it would be a much more aerodynamic way of doing things, but it turns out I just can't get a space plane into orbit. So I'm going to show you the best one I have, which is this one. So this is the current front runner for best space plane that I have. It can actually achieve orbit, if only just. I've been tweaking with ways on how to get it into orbit, but unfortunately it always runs out of fuel. It just does not have the oxidizer in order to get it up. So for those of you who are saying, okay, well, why not add some more fuel tanks, right? So you see the delta V here, this number right here is sort of what's important, right? Because that obviously is going to change based off of so many factors: the engines, how much fuel you have, the weight of the craft, all that. So what happens is if I add more fuel, so you see that that number right now is 12,526, right? So if I go here and I take, let's say this tank right here, oops, come on, there we go, and I bolt that on there, 12,542. Okay, unfortunately, it's not getting me as much more as I would need in order to get up. We can try this. So, first thing I have to do is go here and double check. Yeah, I need to reset the staging because every time you change things, it messes stuff up. But these engines should be fine. They should be fine. I didn't take them off, so they should be alright. Yeah, okay. So they're alright. And just because I know, I will say this, I do wish it saved your Kerbals in. So like when I switch them out and I save it, I wish it would save them in, but it doesn't. Now what I usually do with this is I'll hit the T, obviously start up the engines, but as it's flying, I won't actually let this thing, I won't pull this thing up on its own. I have found that with this particular craft, flying it, trying to fly it straight up, gets me much less. I end up using a whole lot more fuel. So what I do is I'll let this thing take off on its own, right? And I'll keep this angle here until I hit about 900 meters per second, right? And then I have to do something excruciatingly dangerous, which is pull up, right? Don't worry about that wobble. It does that. I don't know why it does that, but it does that. The computer is fighting. Ooh, careful, careful, careful. I want it to go up, but I don't want it to go like straight up just yet. Like I said, I want this thing to hit about 900 meters per second before I start really going up. That seems to get me, because the thing is, I need to get altitude, and I can't do that. So yeah, so we're gonna start tweaking and then pulling up. Ooh, careful, careful. Gotta watch those G's. Ooh, careful. Actually, I need this too, because I need to watch my air intakes. So the steeper, and for anybody who knows exactly, who can kind of tell what I'm doing, the reason I wanted to get it up that high is because it's already accelerated, which means the craft does not have to accelerate up to 1,000 meters per second. So it's already going 900 meters per second as it starts its climb. So as you can see, I'm already at 38 and I'm still within the atmosphere. But as the speed starts to drop off, I'll switch over. I'll kick the rocket engine on long enough for this to reach 0.6, and then I'll shut off the jets, because that's around about the point that the jets burn out anyway. So this craft is the one craft that I've got that can actually achieve an orbit. Unfortunately, it's not a suitable enough orbit for me to be able to reach the station. And that is due in large part to the changes that have been made to the aerodynamics in the launch version. It's kind of a combination between the Ferrum Aerospace and the old Kerbal system. It's not as aggressive as the Ferrum Aerospace, but it's also not as lenient as the old Kerbal system was. In the old Kerbal system, I would have easily been able to get this up, but in this one, yeah, not so much. So here's where the basic problem comes in. I need 793 meters per second of delta V. I don't have that. Ignore this number. This number right here that says 6,535 meters per second of delta V is calculating the power from the jet engines, not the rockets. It may be actually calculating some of the rocket fuel, some of the rocket power, but it's not enough to... Are we dropping? We're just dropping. Like, just. Yeah, it's not enough to have a significant effect on this thing. Excuse me. Yeah, so I normally don't have the fuel. I mean, I can get this thing up into orbit, but this is about as far as I can go. I can't actually reach the 120 meters I have the station out at. Now, the reason I have the station out at 120 meters is for time acceleration purposes. So either A, I need to bring the station in, which is really going to suck, or B, I need to find another way of doing this. And the other way I had planned was to take a fuel tank and basically redesign my tug. So I'll show you guys the process of that after this. This is actually all, I mean, I'm obviously not recording. I'm recording this right now. I'm not recording this in post like I normally do. Chiefly because I just wanted to show you guys, you know, this is basically what I've primarily been doing. I have not given up on KSP. It's just fighting me tooth and nail trying to get this space plane, because the space plane is just such a simpler design. It's so much more efficient. It's so much better. And I would love to get my hands on the nuclear engine, but unfortunately unfortunately, that is not necessarily a viable option. So I've got 39.14 liters of fuel left in this craft. I've achieved orbit. Okay, so there you have it, 76, 78, and there is no possible way I can make it to the station, not with this amount of fuel. If I had the nuclear engine, I could. The fix for the game when it came out was that the nuclear engine now runs off pretty much anything, because it's basically just a nuclear reactor, so it superheats and all that. So the fuel issue wouldn't be as big of an issue, although the nuclear engine is so much heavier than everything else. But because I can run it straight off just liquid oxidizer, I could reduce the weight of the craft, significantly just by doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back to the space plane hangar and go over here, and I'm going to do the rest of this in post, and I'm going to show you guys sort of what my plan is for things to come. Alright? Right, so really quickly, let me go ahead and build this, my new probe idea for you, my new tug idea, I mean. I'm not going to launch it today. I'll launch that in the next episode. But the reason I'm not doing that is because the next episode is going to be a launch and test of it. So, practical test and launch of the launch to make sure the whole system is working properly. And then we'll go from there. I've also gone ahead and added in some footage of the deep space probe that I sent out to the sun. That you guys will actually see here in a minute. It should be right about now-ish, here in the next few seconds. So, yeah, what we're going to do is we'll send that up and get that attached to the station and all that. So, this is actually the deep space probe that I sent up and sent off to the sun. Like I said, I had no intention of bringing it back, but it just yielded such little science from sending it out that it was just... I mean, it cost me more building the stupid thing than it did to... than it got netted me in science, sending it out there. This is actually the second one. The first one was a lot more complicated. It was a lot bigger, designed to do a whole bunch of stuff. And like I said, I did not intend on bringing this thing back, but the way things sort of worked out was that because I didn't get enough science, the whole mission was basically just useless. So to kind of ease that a little bit, I went ahead and brought it back. Using, like I said, I used the in-game cheats where if you hit Alt F12, it pulls up the cheat menu. And I turned on the infinite fuel and infinite RCS just in case, because, I mean, the thing's going to need to be stable. And, yeah. This thing actually took a ton of fuel because I was an idiot and did everything from the wrong side. But, well, that's me. That's the... way I do things, unfortunately. Had I done it on the other side, or had I actually burned initially in the opposite direction, it wouldn't have taken as much fuel to get the orbit. And I think I did fairly well as far as figuring out which way I needed to go and sort of when, because as it all worked out, because the thing is, I wanted to continuously burn in the same direction, which would get me closer and closer to the sun, not put me farther and farther away from it. And that's sort of what you see happening here, is it is getting me closer and closer and closer to the sun. So, I mean, it wasn't as terrible a maneuver as it could have been, but it was a pretty bad maneuver. So yeah, as you can see, I mean, I don't know if you guys can catch it there, but a lot of that stuff just did not net me much of any science. That was actually low orbit science, so I mean, that wasn't that was Kerbin science, not sun science. Also, getting low sun science is going to be excruciatingly difficult, as you guys will no doubt see closer towards the end of the video, where the sun continuously tries to kill you. Go figure. Super hot ball of flaming gas slash plasma is dangerous. Who would have thunk it? You know? Whoever would have figured that it would burn out equipment. Like light it on fire. So, fortunately, nothing exploded, but a lot of stuff did break. And getting this thing back was actually a really huge pain in the butt. I ended up attaching a parachute and engine setup to the top of it in order to get it back, which was not really the funnest thing in the world. I mean, you're talking, it was just a mission just to get this thing back, which was like, pff, whatever. So, but what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to push myself down farther and farther towards the sun, right? Because like I said, I had no intention of bringing this thing back. I expected this thing to explode, and I wanted to collect science from near the sun. Unfortunately, I couldn't get near the sun. I mean, even like most of the science that I collect is all high sun orbit. So I don't know where the low sun orbit is, but I'm pretty sure it's in that nice little bright spot area that you guys see there. I seriously doubt you'll be able to get in there. So yeah, this is gonna be. Woo, gotta say, I love the fact that they added heat. I'm being sarcastic for those of you who may or may not have noticed. Yeah, see, there's the temperatures. So when I start collecting the science stuff here, yeah, I mean, the goo containers did a great job, but it was, I mean, because I lost so much transmitting it, it just negated everything that I was trying to do, which really, really, really sucked. I might try and build another device capable of getting closer to the sun. I'll have to use a lot of the heat shields and things in order to actually get down there. But yeah, I said it just, there's no way of getting, I mean, I don't know if you guys can actually clearly see how far down this craft gets, how close it gets to the sun, but it gets pretty dang close, and it's still considered high orbit. I mean, I don't know what low orbit for the sun is. You see, I would think that within 1 million meters of the sun would be considered low orbit, 'cause I mean, anything within the I would think about half the distance of the nearest planet should be considered low orbit. Maybe it's something that they hadn't considered. Maybe it's something they hadn't planned on adding. I mean, obviously, as you see, I can collect scientific data from the sun. That's not a problem. But yeah, it's just really, really difficult. So I don't know. I'll see how this tug works out, the new tug works out, and hopefully everything goes well, and I can, I mean, kind of sort of work from there, I guess you could say. So that's it, guys. I am done for the day. We'll get this thing all squared away, set up, and to that, I'm going to say, sayonara.